Hi guys, welcome to the next video on the chapter, The Making of a Global World. In the previous video, we discussed about the various roles played by the colonialism. In this video, we'll be discussing the Indian trade and colonialism correlation. Now, if you look at the work played by the Indian entrepreneurs of that time, you will be surprised to see that even though the colonialism had impacted a lot, but still there was some various innovations that the Indian entrepreneurs did and in fact flourished as well at that time. So some examples of that could be that the Shikaripuri Shroffs and Natti Koti Chettiars. So Shroffs of Shikaripur and Chettiars of Natti Kote, they financed export agriculture in Central and Southeast Asia. And how they did it? Yes, sometimes they used their own funds or sometimes they even borrowed from the Europeans. And they had a sophisticated way to transfer money over long and large distances. So this was a very innovative way through which they were actually financing the export agriculture in the entire Central and Southeast Asia. So this was the entrepreneurs financing the export agriculture. Then the Singhi traders of Hyderabad, they also ventured beyond the European colonies and they established flourishing emporias at busy ports worldwide, not just in the European colonies but worldwide. So they sold local and imported curios to increasing number of tourists, and this made them quite a lot of wealth, and they actually flourished even though there was a lot of competition from the European powers. So this is just the example of the work done by the Indian entrepreneurs, but by and large the Indian trade that was flourishing before the colonialization of India had actually started to decline with the arrival of the European powers. So you can see a stark correlation between colonialism and changing Indian trade pattern. So earlier, the fine cotton that was produced in India was exported to Britain. Because India was known for its cotton, gradually the exports declined. Why? Because British cotton manufacturers had increased their production and they pressurized the government to restrict cotton imports. So they actually pressurized the government to provide import duties on the material coming from India. So this led to a situation where tariffs were imposed on cloth imports so that the domestic Britain market could be catered by the manufacturers in the Britain itself, not importing from India. So this led to a situation where the British manufacturers increased export of cotton goods to India, but the Indians could not export to Britain, and in turn the Indian textiles also faced stiff competition from Britishers in international markets because they were now making not just for themselves but due to industrial revolution with cheap machine made goods that they had manufactured. What was happening is they were competing on all fronts in the rest of the world as well. So this led to steady decline of the Indian cotton textile in the 19th century. Now, from the exporters of manufactured goods, India became exporters of raw material. So this is a stark difference that we could see as the European powers arrived in India. So exporters of manufactured goods earlier, now we became the exporters of raw material. So we were exporting raw cotton, indigo, opium shipments to China. So what we were doing is we were buying manufactured, we were selling our raw materials. So there became a lot of trade deficit as well between the two countries. So in the early 19th century, the Britain manufacturers flooded the Indian market. So all the manufactured goods made by machines in the Industrial Revolution, that was being thrown away in the Indian market and it flooded the market. So food grain and raw materials were only exported to Britain from India. So the value of British exports was higher than the value of Indian exports. This situation is called trade deficit. So Britain had a large trade surplus with India, and this helped them balance trade deficit with other countries. So wherever Britain had a trade deficit, it was balanced by the large trade surplus it had with India, and hence it also helped them pay for private remittances. Wherever they had to give remittances, they could give by the large trade surplus. Then interest payments to the India's external debt, then also the pensions of the British officials in India. So all this trade surplus helped support the colonialization of India itself. So this was a situation where colonialism and Indian trade changing pattern had a very strong correlation. So this is about the changing Indian trade along with the colonialism. In the next video, we'll be discussing the economy during the First World War. Thank you so much.